Kojo. Mashkode Bijike was Indigenous cause. Most Sindo Dem, Atikameksheng Anishnawbek, Toronto and Dinda, Ojibwe Anishnawbek Kwendao. So I just introduced myself in my traditional language, Anishnawbek. And if you couldn't understand that, that's okay. You can call me Sage. My name is Sage Petahtegoose, and I come from Atikameksheng Anishnawbek, which is a reserve in northern Ontario on Robinson-Huron Treaty territory. So what I also said is that I belong to the Elk Clan, and I am Anishinaabe. I went to school in Sudbury, and I currently live in Toronto for work and for school, which I'm very proud of. So I just want to talk a bit about myself. Growing up, and without knowing it, I was a part of a revival and a reclamation of culture, language, and identity. That's still ongoing today. So this was before I kind of knew reconciliation was a term. So I guess I could say my parents did it before it was cool. But it's still something that I see as important in my life. If you know at least a little bit about the relationship between Indigenous people of this land and Canada, then you may know that having these integral parts of ourselves, such as our identity, is hard won. So growing up, I thought I was this weird little brown girl, the girl who would go missing from school because she was off celebrating her own ceremonies instead of participating like the rest of my classmates. I didn't think I was special growing up. I just thought I was weird. In fact, I know my mom, who's in the audience, tried really hard to help remind me that I was different. And when you're a kid, different is like, no, I don't want to be different. And it's really hard to see the strength in being different, especially when the people who were around me, they don't look like me, they didn't act like me, and they didn't see the world the way I did. So that's part of the reason why I didn't see difference as a good thing. Little did I know that I was a part of that generation that is following the footsteps of my parents and of my grandparents in returning to our nations, because we are nations, we're not just tribes, our original ways. And part of that is undoing the wrongs that happened to us, like residential schools, and the banning of our spiritual practices and the removal of our children. With these things affecting us, I still see that as a people, we are building. I don't see the same fear in my younger cousins and my siblings about embracing their teachings. They are proud of their culture. And pride is kind of a luxury these days, especially since we face so much discrimination. Very early on, I could tell that my spiritual identity was something that set me apart. And as I aged, I realized that that wasn't a bad thing anymore. It actually strengthened me. So that spiritual identity really informed the work that I do. So I work for a charity organization called Canadian Roots Exchange, and I got my first start with them in volunteering for their Toronto Youth Reconciliation Initiative, which is a mouthful. This is a national team of youth between the ages of 18 and 29, and the teams are composed and balanced with non-Indigenous members and Indigenous members. And so I think they really model that way in which we should be acting as a nation. So we volunteer in communities across the country who've taken an initiative, and we've taken an initiative to engaging in conversations about truth and reconciliation with the communities. We've done this through activities and event hosting, and what we really aim to do is expose other young people with thoughts and ideas that are new to them, especially from the Indigenous communities across Canada, or as I like to call it, Turtle Island. We have teams in Nunavut, Vancouver, Halifax, Edmonton, and even in my hometown, Sudbury, Ontario. What Canadian Roots Exchange has been able to do is create a network of young people who are committed to being change makers in their communities across the land. In these areas, we were able to supply a direct hand into the activities we hosted and the type of change we wanted to see in the people that surround us. Now, it's hard work. The work that my peers we encourage each other to do was one of unlearning and relearning. This unlearning is crucial, especially in relationship to moments in histories that surround First Nations people, and they create false narratives. These narratives that stop relationships before they can happen in a good way. What I feel Canadian Roots has been able to curate is a space where I can talk about the racism that occurs in Canada and surrounds like my own people. And I'm able to talk about the impacts of colonialism with people who aren't Indigenous and recognize that these issues that we face, they're connected and they're interrelated with the other diverse cultures that inhabit Canada. I believe that more spaces like this should be held and supported, and they are integral to the healing of our nation-to-nation relationship. Our goal is to engage youth primarily. However, what was interesting when I was a member of the Toronto team is I noticed that a majority of the people who came to our events were not only youth. I was amazed that they came from people who were older, people who were younger, but mostly people who were eager to be engaged in those kinds of conversations, and they listened to us. We were youth putting on these workshops, these events, and that was really amazing to see. So Canada, the youth are willing to learn, and they're leading by example, and we want to do better. I was able to meet people from various backgrounds and bodies of knowledge, and for that I'm blessed, especially since I was able to teach them about myself, what it means to me to be an Anishinaabe in this country, and what it means to hold on to my traditional teachings that were basically tried to be taken away from me. I know for many people, reconciliation can be a term that's way up there and kind of seem out of our league, but I know that through these youth and through the knowledge that we have as a collection of youth, we're able to come together in a good way and really foster and curate a relationship between each other that I think that the rest of the world needs to see. As I stand before you, I want you to know that I'm not going away. The voices of our Indigenous youth will only continue to go stronger and pervasive as we return to our cultures and find strength through them. And I know that events like these are for Canada, but I'm very invested in Indigenous youth and very inspired by those young people. And I want you to understand that your culture is there for you, and you belong there, and you belong to that learning, that knowing, and practicing of your culture, and it will only help you. It's waiting for you. Miigwech, and thank you for having me.